Good afternoon everybody and welcome to the stream. I'm Robert from the El Magnifica Games channel, and today we're going to continue with our usual Wednesday poetry and riddles. So we finished off last week on Beauty, Time and Love by Samuel Daniel. This was Samuel Daniel, an English poet, playwright and historian in the late Elizabethan and early Jacobean eras. So, let's begin as we usually do by rereading the last poem we read last week. Fair is my love, and cruel as she's fair. Her brow shades frown, although her eyes are sunny. Her smiles are lightning, though her pride despair. And her disdains are gall, her favours honey. A modest maid, decked with a blush of honour, whose feet do tread green paths of youth and love, the wonder of all eyes that look upon her, sacred on earth, designed a saint above. Chastity and beauty, which were deadly foes, live reconciled friends within her brow, and had she pity to conjoin with those, then who had heard the plaints I utter now? For had she not been fair, and thus unkind, my muse had slept, and none had known my mind. My spotless love hovers with purest wings about the temple of the proudest frame, where blaze those lights fairest of earthly things, which clear our clouded world with brightest flame. My ambitious thoughts, confined in her face, affect no honour but what she can give. My hopes do rest in the limits of her grace, I weigh no comfort unless she relieve. For she that can my heart in paradise holds in her fairest hand what dearest is. My fortune's wheels the circle of her eyes, whose rolling grace dine at once a turn of bliss. All my life's sweet consists in her alone, so much I love the most unloving one. And yet I cannot reprehend the flight, or blame the attempt pursuing so to soar. The mounting venture for a high delight did make the honour of the fall the more. For who gets wealth that puts not from the shore? Danger hath honour, great designs their fame, glory doth follow, courage goes before. And though the event oft answers not the same, suffice that high attempts have never shame. The mean observer, whom base safety keeps, lives without honour, dies without a name, and in eternal darkness ever sleeps. And therefore, Delilah, 'tis to me no blot to have attempted, though attained thee not. When men shall find thy flower, thy glory pass, and though with careful brow sitting alone, received haste this message from thy glass, that tells the truth and says that all is gone, fresh shalt thou see in me the wounds thou madest, though spent thy flame in me the heat remaining. I that have loved thee thus before thou fadest, my faith shall wax when thou art in thy waning. The world shall find this miracle in me, the fire can burn when all the matter's spent, when that my faith has been thyself shalt see, and that thou wast unkind, thou mayest repent. Thou mayest repent that thou hast scorned my tears, when winter snows upon thy sable hairs. Beauty, sweet love, is like the morning dew, whose short refresh upon the tender green cheers for a time, but till the sun doth show, and straight 'tis gone, as it had never been. Soon doth it fade that makes the fairest flourish. Short is the glory of the blushing rose, the hue which thou so carefully dost nourish, yet which at length thou must be forced to lose, when thou, surcharged with burthen of thy years, shalt bend thy wrinkles homeward to the earth, and that, in beauty's lease expired, appears the date of age, the calends of our death. But no more, this must not be foretold, for women grieve to think they must be old. I must not grieve my love, whose eyes would read lines of delight, whereon her youth might smile. Flowers of time before they come to seed, and she is young, and now must sport the while. And sport, sweet maid, in season of these years, and learn to gather flowers before they wither, and where the sweetest blossom first appears, yet love and youth conduct thy pleasures thither. Lighten forth smiles to clear the clouded air, and calm the tempest which my sighs do raise. Pity and smiles do best become the fair, pity and smiles must only yield thee praise. Make me to say when all my griefs are gone, happy the heart that sighed for such a one. Let others sing of knights and paladins, in aged accents and untimely words, paint shadows in imaginary lines, which well the reach of their high wit records. But I must sing of thee, and those fair eyes, authentic shall my verse in time to come. When yet the unborn shall say, Lo, where she lies, whose beauty made him speak, that else was dumb. These are the arks, the trophies I erect, that fortify thy name against old age, and these thy sacred virtues must protect, against the dark and time's consuming rage. Though the error of my youth in them appear, suffice they show I lived, and loved thee, dear. Now, I did notice something on this reading. Yes, my faith shall wax when thou art in thy waning. I believe wax means to increase, but I also think that last week I misread that, and rather misunderstood that part of the poem. To increasingly assume the specified characteristic. Yes. Indeed, that's on me. I rather misinterpreted that line. Where it says, my faith shall wax when thou art in thy waning, he's actually saying that I will continue to love you and love you even more, even as you become less beautiful, which is rather the opposite of what I thought it was saying last week. So that's an important correction. I must say, I do think it's rather nice though. Quite a few clever conceits. Anyway, moving on. So next we move on to a sonnet by Mark Alexander Boyd. So, who was Mark Alexander Boyd? Mark Alexander Boyd, 1562 to 1601, was a Scottish poet and soldier of fortune. Goodness. I take it that means he was a mercenary then. Yes. He was born in Ayrshire, Scotland. His father was from Penkill, Carrick in Ayrshire, who was educated under the care of his uncle, the Archbishop of Glasgow, James Boyd of Trockrig, which I have no doubt I'm mispronouncing. Anyway, as a young man he left Scotland for France, where he studied civil law. He took part in the French Wars of Religion, serving in the army of Henry III. The French Wars of Religion is a term which is used in reference to a period of civil war between French Catholics and Protestants, commonly called Huguenots, which lasted from 1562 to 1598. According to estimates, between 2 and 4 million people died from violence, famine, or... Goodness. I wasn't aware of this particular conflict in French history. I mean, I suppose it's not that surprising when you think about the other things going on around this time. I mean, Protestantism was relatively new. He had 2 collections of Latin poems published in 1590 and 1592, at a time when he was teaching at the College of Guyenne. I'm not sure. At the College of Guyenne in Bordeaux. He returned to Scotland in 1596 and died back in Ayrshire on the 10th of April 1601. Oh my goodness, so he actually spent most of his adult life away from his country of origin then. His country, I should say. He is now remembered for one poem in Scots, the Sonnet of Venus and Cupid, which was attributed to him by Arthur Quiller Couch in 1900, and which Ezra Pound called the most beautiful sonnet in the language. Arthur Quiller Couch, which I may be mispronouncing his name of, he is the anthologist who put together this book, which is the Oxford Book of English Verse, which was published in 1900. So I have a sneaking suspicion that the sonnet that they reference here and the sonnet that we're about to read are one and the same. Could be wrong, but that's what I suspect. So, Sonnet by Mark Alexander Boyd. Fra bank to bank, fra wood to wood I rin. Our hail it with my feeble fantasy, like till a leaf that falleth from a tree, or till a reed our blowing with the wind. For God guides me, the Anne of them is blin, yea, and a barn brock up in vanity, the next a wife ingenerate of the sea, and licked her not a dolphin with her fin. Unhappy is the man for evermore that tills the sand and soweth in the air, but twice unhappier is he, I larn, that feldeth in his heart a mad desire, and follows on a woman thro' the fire, led by a blind and teach it by a barn. Fortunately, I feel like I'm missing quite a lot there, because I'm not all that familiar with Scots. Let's see. Oh, they don't even explain much of it, or any of it, in fact, at the bottom. Often at the bottom of the page it includes some notes as to the meaning of words. Oh well. I think this is iambic pentameter. Looks like it. So the first two stanzas have an ABBA rhyming scheme, and the final one is a rhyming couplet followed by 4 lines that follow an ABBA rhyming scheme. I think we'll just keep going for now. We could stop on this one and give it a closer analysis, and if anyone in chat would like us to do so, let me know, and we will. But I get the feeling the amount of work it's going to take to fully appreciate this poem won't be worth the time investment when, of course, we have so many more poems to see yet. So the next poem is called Ubik by Joshua Sylvester. Oops, sorry. There we go. Joshua Sylvester was an English poet. Sylvester was the son of a Kentish clothier. In his 10th year he was sent to school at King Edward VI's School, Southampton, where he gained a knowledge of French. After about 3 years at school he appears to have been put to business, and in 1591 the title page of his Ivory, I assume, states that he was in the service of the Merchant Adventurers Company. He was for a short time a land steward, and in 1606 Henry Frederick, Prince of Wales, gave him a small pension as a kind of court poet. In 1613 he obtained a position as secretary to the Merchant Adventurers. He was stationed at Middleborough in the Low Countries, where he died. He translated into English heroic couplets the scriptural epic of Guillaume de Bartas, which I may well be mispronouncing. Guillaume is the French form of, well, the Norman form of William, and so presumably the French as well. A heroic couplet is a traditional form of English poetry commonly used in epic and narrative poetry and consisting of rhyming pairs of lines in iambic pentameter. So we've seen plenty of that. Our bisexed parents, free from sin, in Eden did their double birth begin. De Bartas his divine Weeks and Works. His essay of the second week was published in 1598. And in 1604 the divine weeks of the world's birth, the ornate style of the original, offered no difficulty to Sylvester. He was himself a disciple of the Euphorists, and added many adornments of his own invention. The mains of Du Bartas appealed most to his English and German co-religionists, and the translation was immensely popular. It has often been suggested that John Milton owed something in the conception of Paradise Lost to Sylvester's translation. Citation needed. His popularity ceased with the Restoration. Citation needed. And John Dryden called his verse abominable fustian. Do I want to know what fustian is? Originally a kind of coarse fabric made from cotton and flax, now a kind of coarse twilled cotton or cotton and linen, stuffed with a short pile and often dyed a dull colour, which is chiefly prepared for men's wear. A class of fabric including corduroy and velveteen. Figuratively, inflated, pompous or pretentious speech or writing. Bombast, also archaic, incoherent or unintelligible speech or writing. Gibberish nonsense. Huh. So actually that comment, abominable fustian, is a lot more precise and possibly apt than I had expected. Well, we'll have to see what his poetry's like, but contextually fitting, I suppose I mean. His works were reprinted by A.B. Grossart in the Chertsey Worthies Library. See also Charles Dunster, Considerations on Milton's Early Reading, 1800. Oh goodness. It's not often you see writing works from 1800 or before being recommended. Anyway, so that's who he was. What does ubik mean, actually? I mean, I'll be surprised if it isn't Latin. Ubi, where, qui, each ever. Everywhere. Oh. Why do I get the feeling this is going to be a Protestant a poem of a devotional nature? So, ubik. Actually, I should probably double check that's actually how it's pronounced. Oh no, IPA. That's annoying. Oh. From which we get the English ubiquitous. That makes sense. So should it be ubic? Or it could be ubique for all I know. I don't know. I'm just gonna call it ubique for now. That may be completely and utterly and laughably wrong. Anyway, Ubique by Joshua Sylvester. Were I as base as is the lowly plain, and you, my love, as high as heaven above, yet should the thoughts of me, your humble swain, ascend to heaven in honour of my love. Were I as high as heaven above the plain, and you, my love, as humble and as low as the deepest bottoms of the main. Wheresoever you were, with you my love should go. Were you the earth, dear love, and I the skies, my love should shine on you like to the sun. Look upon you with 10,000 eyes, till heaven waxed blind until the world were done. Whatsoever I am, below or else above you, wheresoever you are, my heart shall truly love you. Not sure I read that particularly well. I apologise. Quite straightforward meaning. On the whole, the English is moderately modern, I would say, for something written 400 years ago. In contrast to the poem... Okay, the poem we previously read isn't a fair comparison, because it's in Scots, but the poem before that. So yeah, let's give this one more reading then. See if I can do a better job this time. Were I as base as is the lowly plain, and you, my love, as high as heaven above, yet should the thoughts of me, your humble swain, ascend to heaven in honour of my love. Were I as high as heaven above the plain, and you, my love, as humble and as low as are the deepest bottoms of the main. Wheresoever you were, with you my love should go. Were you the earth, dear love, and I the skies, my love should shine on you like to the sun, and look upon you with 10,000 eyes, till heaven waxed blind until the world were done. Wheresoever I am, below or else above you. Wheresoever you are, my heart shall truly love you. Very sweet. Not 100% sure what he means by till heaven waxed blind. I mean, we looked at wax before, it meant to increase, but I don't see how heaven could increase in such a way as to be described as blind. And I'm not seeing much help here. I'll quickly check my physical dictionary. So there's wax of moon between new and full, having progressively larger part of surface illuminated. Compare wane. Wax and wane also. Transference of influence, etc. Undergo alterations of increase and decrease. Archaic and poetic, grow or increase. With adjective complement, pass into specified condition or especially mood or tone. Wax fat, old, merry. So, till heaven waxed blind, I think would literally just mean until heaven went blind. Oh, because he said, my love should shine on you like to the sun, and look upon you with 10,000 eyes, till heaven waxed blind until the worlds were done. Is that a reference to looking towards the sun? Actually, that looks to me like it's the other way round. I think they actually missed a trick there. Albeit it may have been seen as a slightly inappropriate conceit had they gone for what I'm about to suggest. I think what it says is it's likening the speaker to the sun and suggesting that the sun is going to look on at you down on Earth until the sun is blind. Now I think the obvious way they could have done it would be if instead they had described her as the sun and him as the Earth and said that he would look at her with 10,000 eyes until they were blind. Now, it's possible that due to the illusion of self-harm there, that it wouldn't have been deemed appropriate, since blindness, I I mean, it's a serious disability today, but even more so in the past, when there would have been much less provision for the disabled. But you could see, or at least I think I can see in the poetic sense, how that could be considered exaggeratively romantic. Hyperbolically romantic. Clearly stating things more strongly than would be reflected in real life by any sensible person, but at the same time with a nice sentiment. And it also has the qualities of raising the figure of romantic interest to a grand and radiant status like the sun. But that isn't what they've done there, as far as I can see. I think it just means look at someone until you go blind. Anyway, I mean, I mentioned what they didn't do just simply because I think it's so obvious you'd have thought it would have occurred to them. It's odd that they didn't go down that route, but still. And yes, and I've forgotten if I said, but this seems to be an ABAB rhyming scheme that is alternate rhyming in iambic pentameter, so far as I can see. Although not all of it, the last two lines appear to be hexameter. Perhaps that's just a sort of extended Alexandrian. Let me double check I'm thinking of the right one. An Alexandrian is I believe an hexameter that concludes a poem in iambic pentameter, but usually only one line. A line of poetic metre having 12 syllables, usually divided into 2 or 3 equal parts. An Alexandrian parrot or parakeet. Wonderful. But the definition I gave, I'm pretty sure is correct. Anyway, moving on. So, Michael Drayton. Who was Michael Drayton? Michael Drayton, early 1563 to 1631, was an English poet who came to prominence in the Elizabethan era, continuing to write through the reign of James I and into the reign of Charles I. Many of his works consisted of historical poetry. Do you mean many of his works consisted of historical poetry? Do you mean that he was adapting earlier works, or that many of his works are now considered historic? Because surely just by their age they would be considered historic by now. And by the same token, they wouldn't have been considered historic just after he'd written them. Anyway, that's what it says. Many of his works consisted of historical poetry, and he was also the first English language author to write odes in the style of Horace. Oh. He died on the 23rd of December 1631 in London. I suppose that really means the first, the earliest known English language author to write odes in the style of Horace. Okay, let's have a quick look at his early life as well. Drayton was born at Harts Hill, near Nuneaton, Warwickshire, England. Almost nothing is known about his early life, beyond the fact that in 1580 he was in the service of Thomas Goodere of Collingham, Nottinghamshire. It is believed that, in his early years, Drayton entered the service of Sir Henry Goodere, who provided for Drayton's education. 19th and 20th century scholars, on the basis of scattered allusions in his poems and dedications, suggested that Drayton might have studied at the University of Oxford and been intimate with the Polesworth branch of the Goodere family, while recent work has cast doubt on these speculations, suggesting that it is more likely Drayton's social status was inferior to that of William Shakespeare and well below that of Edmund Spenser or Samuel Daniel, both of whom obtained university degrees. So does that mean this should be considered poetry of a lesser social class? I don't want to quite say lower class because I'm not convinced the literacy rate was high among the lower classes at this point in history. Anyway, to his coy love, Michael Drayton. I pray thee, leave, love me no more. Call home the heart you gave me. I but in vain that saint adore, that can but will not save me. Those poor half-kisses kill me quite. Was ever man thus served? Amidst an ocean of delight, for pleasure to be starved. Sorry, that should be servid and starved. Let me start again. So, To His Coy Love by Michael Drayton. I pray thee, leave, love me no more. Call home the heart you gave me. I but in vain that saint adore, that can but will not save me. These poor half-kisses kill me quite. Was ever man thus served? Amidst an ocean of delight, for pleasure to be starved. Show me no more those snowy breasts, with azure riverets branched, where whilst mine eye with plenty feasts, yet is my thirst not staunched. O Tantalus, thy pains ne'er tell, by me thou art prevented. 'Tis nothing to be plagued in hell, but thus in heaven tormented. Clip me no more in those dear arms, nor thy life's comforts call me. Oh, these are but powerful charms, and do but more enthrall me. But see how patient I am grown, in all this coil about thee. Come, nice thing, let my heart alone, I cannot live without thee. Yes, I must say, I feel like I can see some substantial differences to the poetry we've just been reading. For a start, it seems to mostly be in a tetrameter. Now, I don't know if tetrameter would have been considered less prestigious at this particular point in history, but it is notable. But it's not even perfect, because, for example, I cannot live without thee. That clearly... sorry, I'm just trying to figure out how I can do annotations. That's 7 syllables, I believe. And therefore, it's only 3 feet in this context. Just a second. Oh, maybe that's how I do it. Does this let me... Nope. Going too well, is it? Is that the one I want? No. Oh well. Oh, there we go. This should work. So if we think about where the stress is falling, cannot is a good example. Cannot is always cannot. It's never cannot. So far as I'm aware, it's cannot. So we have a stress on the can. Can we not get a better colour than that? Let's try this. Oh, good enough, I suppose. I cannot live, so then we get a stress on live. Interesting that you don't have a stress on I, because I is a word I would naturally assume would get stressed, but it ruins the scansion of the rest of the line. I cannot live without, so then the stress falls on the out, which I believe is right. It's not without, it's without. Is that right? Without. Without. No, that's wrong. It should be on the with, shouldn't it? Without. Without. Yeah. I cannot live without thee. Without. No, in this case I think it would fall on the out, especially as the it naturally doesn't want to be stressed, I think, in this case. But again, it's as a good candidate for potential stress. I cannot live without thee. Yeah, I think I was wrong for a moment there. It should be without, not without. Not without, it's without. So yes, I cannot live without thee. So the point I'm getting at is we end on a offbeat, and we only have 3 syllables. Just to double check, if we go up the top, call home the heart that you gave me. Oh, that's 7 as well. Is this a ballad? That can but will not save me. I think it is. Was ever man thus served? Hold on. These poor half kisses. These poor half kisses kill me quite. Yes, okay. Oops, sorry. That was worth doing then. So my conclusion is this is actually a ballad, but it's an interesting ballad because every even line ends on a weak beat. It has a feminine ending. So you also have which I don't think is usually the case with a ballad. So you have an additional it's doubly the structure of the poem is, or the structure of the ballad is accentuated by the feminine endings. Although then again, the little accent they put on top of the E there, surely that's telling you that this is stressed when it wouldn't normally. For pleasure to be starved. No, it's just, okay, that's interesting. That's interesting. So when they include an accent like that, as I had worked out in previous poems, based on the fact that, to try and get the scansion working, they're emphasising the fact that you do pronounce the ED as an extra syllable, but it doesn't mean that it gets a strong beat. It doesn't become it doesn't get stressed hard. It just means don't forget to pronounce it. That's interesting. That's very interesting. So in conclusion, I stand by what my final conclusions were a moment ago, that this is a ballad, but it's interesting that the trimeter lines, that is the even lines, have a feminine ending. Call home the heart you gave me. Call home the heart you gave me. And I certainly could believe that a ballad would be considered a inferior form of poetry. I'm not saying it is an inferior form of poetry, but I could see that it would have been associated with the lower classes. As for rhyming, it's alternate rhyme. There was one other point I was going to raise, but I've forgotten what it was. Let me read this one more time. So, to his coy love, Michael Drayton, I pray thee, leave, love me no more. Call home the heart you gave me. I but in vain that saint adore, that can but will not save me. These poor half kisses kill me quite. Whatever man thus served, amidst an ocean of delight, for pleasure to be starved. Show me no more those snowy breasts, with azure riverets branched, where, whilst mine eye with plenty feasts, yet is my thirst not staunched. O Tantalus, thy pains ne'er tell, by me thou art prevented. 'Tis nothing to be played in hell, but thus in heaven tormented. Clip me no more in those dear arms, nor thy life's comfort call me, or these are but too powerful charms, and do but more enthrall me. But see how patient I am grown, in all this coil about thee. Come, nice thing, let my heart alone, I cannot live without thee. I've forgotten what the other point was that I was going to raise before, but I did notice some interesting things I missed before. For example, with azure riverets branched, I'm pretty sure that's an allusion to veins on the breast, which is interesting. You don't often see that sort of imagery expressed. I don't know if I'm not entirely sure why that is. I don't know if perhaps that's considered a slightly gross part of the anatomy today. When we are used to what am I trying to say? When we tend to have I can't think of a concise way to express this. In the past, people would have been far more aware of the composition of the insides of creatures and so on, because they would have had a lot more dealings with either butchering animals themselves or more likely in contact with partially butchered animals, etc. So perhaps they weren't so easily... So the thesis I'm putting forward is that perhaps they tended to be less put off by the presence of veins than we are today, hence why they were less averse to expressing this sort of imagery. But I could be completely wrong. Just a thought that popped into my head. As for the meaning of the poem, of course, it's oh, I remember what I was going to say earlier. I noticed it's called To His Coy Love. Now, coyness is, of course, shyness. In fact, let's see if we can get a better definition than that. To be bashful, shy, retiring. To be quiet, reserved, or modest. Now, that would have been seen at the time as being very desirable in a woman. In a female love interest. It sort of goes hand in hand with things like chastity and virtue. Now, because the whole theme of this poem seems to be that the speaker is suffering because their lover is so reserved and possibly even there are allusions to chastity here. I wonder if this is supposed to be interpreted as being almost ironic. Perhaps poking fun at the feminine ideals of the time. That it's all very, very well to portray coy women as being some sort of on some sort of pedestal, but try actually being in love with one. And see how happy you are then. Just a theory, I could be wrong. It's interesting though, it is an interesting poem. Let's move on, shall we? To another poem by Michael Drayton called The Parting. The Parting by Michael Drayton. Since there's no help, come let us kiss and part. Nay, I have done, you get no more of me. And I am glad, yea, glad with all my heart, that thus so cleanly I myself can free. Shake hands forever, cancel all our vows, and when we meet at any time again, be it not seen in either of our brows, that we one jot of former love retain, now at last gasp of love's latest breath, when his pulse failing, passion speechless lies, when faith is kneeling by his bed of death, and innocence is closing up his eyes. Now if thou wouldest, when all have given him over, from death to life thou mightest him yet recover. Interesting. This is hexameter, isn't it? Even though I think the rest of the poem was in pentameter, iambic pentameter. Now, if thou wouldest, when all have given him over. I think that's a full 13 syllables. Now, if thou wouldest, when all have given him over. Yeah. So that's hexameter with iambic hexameter with a feminine ending. But then the very final line is from death to life thou mightest. Wait, from death to life thou mightest him yet recover. No, that is hexameter, but with a masculine ending. Okay, that makes more sense now, then. So we do actually have 2 lines of hexameter concluding a poem in iambic pentameter. This sort of extended Alexandrine, as from what I can see. And in a sense is closing up his eyes. Yes. And it's alternately rhymed ABAB. Except for the final 2 lines, which rhyme with each other. I don't recognise that form, but I'd be surprised if it doesn't have a name. Maybe this is just a variation on... what did they call it? Heroic... was it heroic verse? Sorry, I was just quickly looking up heroic verse. But it looks like the definition may have varied from time to time, and definitely varies from place to place. Well, from language to language. The heroic couplet is a pair of iambic pentameter lines that rhyme together. Okay, so not alternately rhyming. So this certainly is not... oh, hold on. The heroic quatrain, also elegiac quatrain, is a stanza of iambic pentameter rhyming A-B, A-B. Okay. Elegiac, that refers to elegies, does it not? Which are small, pithy phrases that would often be put on gravestones, I think? Of relating to an elegy, a mournful or plaintive poem, a funeral song, a poem of lamentation, a classical poem written in elegiac meter. Oh, okay. I was slightly wrong then. What does my physical dictionary say? Once I've looked this up, we'll return to the poem at hand. Elegy, song of lamentation, especially for the dead, often vaguely used of other poems. Poem in elegiac meter. Yep, okay. Not sure which word I was thinking of then, but I was clearly getting confused with another word. So, reading this more slowly and carefully, since there's no help, come let us kiss and part. Nay, I have done, you get no more of me. Ah, are there two speakers here? Because the hyphen indicates a pause. And I am glad, yea, glad with all my heart, that thus so cleanly I myself can free. Or is it an individual who changes their mind, where they say, come let us kiss and part, and then they think for a moment, nay, I have done, you get no more of me. Shake hands forever, cancel all our vows, when we meet at any time again, be it not seen in either of our brows, that we one jot of former love retain, now at the last gasp of love's latest breath, when his pulse failing, passion speechless lies, when faith is kneeling by his bed of death, and innocence is closing up his eyes. Well, up to that we one jot of former love retain, it sounds like a fairly straightforward breakup. Then we get the now at the last gasp of love's latest breath, when his pulse failing, passion speechless lies, when faith is kneeling by his bed of death, and innocence is closing up his eyes. So this is providing a context, a temporal context. This is at the absolute last moment of love, it would seem. Now, if thou wouldest, when all have given him over, from death to life thou mightest him yet recover. That seems to be suggesting that all is not lost. But I am struggling to see this poem as one coherent whole. It feels like it's in two halves. Oh, what's the name of it? There is a name for a structure where you have 8 lines followed by 6. Because you often see it in odes, if I recall correctly. Am I thinking of an ode or am I thinking of a sonnet? I'm thinking of a sonnet, aren't I? Ode is a much more loose and free term. A sestet is 6 lines forming a stanza or a complete poem. A sestet is also a name given to the second division of an Italian sonnet, as opposed to an English or Spenserian sonnet, which must consist of an octave of 8 lines, succeeded by a sestet of 6 lines. Those are the terms I was looking for. So there is an octave and there is a sestet, even though the actual structure of the poem doesn't seem to call for it. They aren't using... Are they using... I was going to say they don't seem to be using the rhyming structure you'd expect. Well, we have A, B, A, B, A, B, A, B, which you would expect, I think. Or at least in some variations of the sonnet. And we have lies, deaf, eyes, Wait, no. Breath lies, deaf eyes, over, recover. So that's A, B, A, B, C, C. Prosodically, Surrey is more adept at composing in iambic pentameter, and his sonnets are written in what has come to be known anachronistically as Shakespearean measure. This version of the sonnet form, characterised by 3 alternately rhymed quatrains terminating in a final couplet, A, B, A, B, C, D, C, D, E, F, E, F, G, G. That's exactly what we've got here. Okay. Then... Yep, this is what is known as a Shakespearean sonnet. You'd think I'd remember these things by now, wouldn't you? I'm pretty certain we've been on that specific Wikipedia page more than a few times in this series of streams. Anyway, so the octave and the sestet do seem to be somewhat contradictory, which I don't follow. So let's try giving it another reading, quickly. Michael Drayton. The Parting by Michael Drayton. Since there's no help, come let us kiss and part. Nay, I have done, you get no more of me. And I am glad, yea, glad with all my heart, that thus so cleanly I myself can free. Shake hands forever, cancel all our vows, and when we meet at any time again, be it not seen in either of our brows, that we one jot of former love retain. Now at the last gasp of love's latest breath, when, his pulse failing, passion speechless lies, when faith is kneeling by his bed of death, and innocence is closing up his eyes. Now if thou wouldest, when all have given him over, from death to life thou mightest him yet recover. It's funny because it describes a context and emotions which are very relevant today. In fact, if anything, it's interesting that they seem to be referring to a relationship breakup at this period, especially as there is a reference to vows, because that suggests this could even be a divorce, which were rare at this point. But I can't reconcile the octave to the sestet. It's not clear to me whether this is one person that's having second thoughts, or if there's 2 speakers in this poem. Anyway, I think we've done this one absolutely to death. So let's keep going. This is Cyrena, also by Michael Drayton. Cyrena by Michael Drayton. Near to the silver Trent, Cyrena dwelleth, she to whom nature lent all that excelleth, by which the muses late, and the neat graces, have for their great estate taken their places, twisting an anadem, wherewith to crown her, as it belonged to them most to renown her. On thy bank, in a rank, let thy swains sing her, and with their music along let them bring her. Tagus and Pactolus are to thee debtor, nor for their gold to us are they the better. Henceforth of all the rest, be thou the river, which as the daintiest puts them down ever. For as my precious one o'er thee doth travel, she to pearl paragon turneth thy gravel on thy bank. Our mournful Philomel, that rarest tuner, henceforth in apparel shall wake the sooner, and to her shall complain from the thick cover, redoubling every strain over and over. For when my love too long her chamber keepeth, and though it suffered wrong, the morning weepeth on thy bank. Oft have I seen the sun, to do her honour, fixed himself at his noon to look upon her, and have gilt every grove, every hill near her, with his flames from above, striving to cheer her. And when she from his sight hath herself turned, he, as it had been night, in clouds have mourned on thy bank. The verdant meads are seen, when she doth view them, in fresh and gallant green, straight to renew them, and every little grass broad itself spreadeth, proud that this bonny lass upon it treadeth. Nor flower is so sweet, and this large cincture, but it upon her feet leaveth some tincture on thy bank. The fishes in the flood, when she doth angle, for the hooks strive a good them to entangle, and leaping on the land from the clear water, their scales upon the sand lavishly scatter, therewith to pave the mould whereon she passes, so herself to behold as in her glasses on thy bank. When she looks out by night, the stars stand gazing, like comets to our sight, fearfully blazing, as wondering at her eyes with their much brightness, which so amaze the skies, dimming their lightness. The raging tempests are calm when she speaketh, such most delightsome balm from her lips breaketh on thy bank. In all our Brittany there's not a fairer, nor can you fit any, should you compare her. Angels her eyelids keep, or hearts surprising, which look while she doth sleep, like the sun's rising. She alone of her kind knoweth true measure, and her unmatched mind is heaven's treasure on thy bank. Fair dove and Darwin clear, boast ye your beauties, to trench your mistress here, yet pay your duties. My love was higher born towards the full fountains, yet she doth moorland scorn, and the peak mountains. Nor would she none should dream where she abideth, humble as is the stream which by her slideth on thy bank. Yet my poor rustic muse, nothing can move her, nor the means I can use through her, though her true lover. May a long winter's night have I waked for her, yet this my piteous plight, nothing can stir her. All thy sands, silver Trent, down to the Humber, the sighs that I have spent never can number. On thy bank, in a rank, let thy swains sing her. I'll let thy swans sing her, and with their music along let them bring her. Are swans particularly known for having a beautiful song? Now let me double check for my own benefit. Swain, that is either a young man or boy in service, a knight servant and attendant, a country labourer, a countryman, a rustic, or a rural lover, a male sweetheart in a pastoral setting. That's why I thought it was swain, because I thought it was referring to serenading her. But it's not, that is swans, isn't it? This is a very interesting one. The structure, yet again, seems to be entirely of its own, but because they repeat it over and over again, the structure that's been invented becomes reinforced. Although even then, I don't think it's perfectly regular. Because this bit here, on thy bank in a rank let thy swans sing her, and with their music along let them bring her, that's also repeated above, but it's also, or I suppose it would be more accurate to say this passage here is repeated below, but it acts in defiance of the meter, doesn't it? Except it doesn't. Not the meter, I mean the... I can't think of the proper term. The form of the poem. Yes, it's a poetic form that has been invented here. Except I've just realised with that ellipses, I was probably meant to repeat all of these the entire 5-line passage each time, wasn't I? That makes sense. And it's also interesting to see six syllables followed by 5 consistently, and I think it's an iambic line followed by a trochaic line no, it's not. It's iambic in both cases. So odd lines have a masculine ending, even lines have a feminine ending. It's interesting. That's ignoring the final passage to each stanza, assuming these are stanzas. Judging by the gap there, I would say so. Once the 5-line passage is concluded, we're on to a new stanza. It is really interesting, the structure they've come up with here, especially because it's so concise. It's almost entirely in a trimeter, and the lines which don't have 5 feet have fewer. As for the rhyming scheme, it's just a straightforward alternate rhyming lines scheme. Let's give this another reading, shall we? Cyrena by Michael Drayton. Near to the silver Trent Cyrena dwelleth, she to whom nature lent all that excelleth, by which the muses late and the neat graces have for their great estate taken their places, twisting an anadem. I've made 2 mistakes now. I'll start again. Also, what's an anadem? A headband, especially a garland of flowers. Oh, that's a very nice word, I didn't know. So, Cyrena by Michael Drayton. Near to the silver Trent Cyrena dwelleth, she to whom nature lent all that excelleth, by which the muses late and the neat graces have for their great estate taken their places, twisting an anadem wherewith to crown her, as it belonged to them most to renown her. On thy bank in a rank, let thy swans sing her, and with their music along let them bring her. Tagus and Pactolus are to thee debtor, nor for their gold to us are they the better. Henceforth of all the rest be thou the river, which as the daintiest puts them down ever. For as my precious one o'er thee doth travel, she to pearl paragon turneth thy gravel. On thy bank, in a rank, let thy swans sing her, and with their music along let them bring her. Our mournful Philomel, that rarest tuner, henceforth in apparel shall wake the sooner, and to her shall complain from the thick cover, redoubling every strain over and over. For when my love too long her chamber keepeth, as though it suffered wrong, the morning weepeth. On thy bank, in a rank, let thy swans sing her, and with their music along let them bring her. Oft have I seen the sun, to do her honour, fix himself at his noon to look upon her, and have gilt every grove, every hill near her, with his flames from above, striving to cheer her. And when she from his sight hath herself turned, he, as it had been night, in clouds hath mourned. On thy bank, in a rank, let thy swans sing her, and with their music along let them bring her. The verdant meads are seen, when she doth view them, in fresh and gallant green, straight to renew them, and every little grass broad itself spreadeth, proud that this bonny lass upon it treadeth. Nor flower is so sweet in this large cincture, but it upon her feet leaveth some tincture. On thy bank, in a rank, let thy swans sing her, and with their music along let them bring her. The fishes in the flood, when she doth angle, for the hooks strive a good them to entangle, and leaping on the land from the clear water, their scales upon the sand lavishly scatter, therewith to pave the mould whereon she passes, so herself to behold as in her glasses. On the bank, in a rank, let those swans sing her, and with their music along let them bring her. When she looks out by night, the stars and sand gazing, like comets to our sight, fearfully blazing, as wondering at her eyes with their much brightness, which so amaze the skies, dimming their lightness. The raging tempests are calm when she speaketh, such most delightsome balm from her lips breaketh. On thy bank, in a rank, let thy swans sing her, and with their music along let them bring her. In all our Brittany there's not a fairer, nor can you fit any, should you compare her. Angels her eyelids keep, all hearts surprising, which look while she doth sleep, like the sun's rising. She alone of her kind knoweth true measure, and her unmatched mind is heaven's treasure. On thy bank, in a rank, let thy swans sing her, and with their music along let them bring her. Fair dove and Darwin clear, boast ye your beauties, to trench your mistress here, yet pay your duties. My love was higher born towards the full fountains, yet she doth moorland scorn and the peak mountains. Nor would she none should dream where she abideth, humble as it is the stream which by her slideth. On thy bank, in a rank, let thy swans sing her, and with their music along let them bring her. Yet my poor rustic muse, nothing can move her, nor the means I can use, though her true lover. Many a long winter's night have I waked for her, yet this my piteous plight, nothing can stir her. All thy sands, silver Trent, down the Humber, the sighs that I have spent, never can number. On thy bank, in a rank, let thy swans sing her, and with their music along let them bring her. So I'm trying to assess the meaning of this poem beyond the obvious praise it's bestowing upon a female figure of a female recipient of romantic feelings. Oh, Philomel, of course, being the nightingale. Is this a reference to the nightingale not waking up? Then again, it is entitled Serena, which might contradict that. What, if anything, does Serena mean? Obviously, it's a female given name. Siren. Ah. So it is possible that this poem is trying to conflate the nightingale and its beautiful song as a source for poetic inspiration with a actual woman that is the I can't think of the right word. The subject of romantic affection. I'm just curious what, if anything, we're supposed to conclude from nothing can stir her. Is that simply part of the conceit that the speaker's lover is analogous to the nightingale? That is a bird that would hibernate. I say hibernate. I'm not sure to what extent most birds in Britain do hibernate in the true sense of the word hibernate, but they certainly become less active during winter. Or is this actually significant? Is it trying to tell us something specific about this man's lover? I'm not sure. If you have an opinion on the subject, please share it in chat and I will read it shortly. Anyway, let's move on to Agincourt, also by Michael Drayton. For reference, since I assume this is what this poem is going to be about, the Battle of Agincourt was an English victory in the 100 Years' War. It took place on the 25th of October 1415, St. Crispin's Day, near Azincourt in northern France. The unexpected English victory against a numerically superior French army boosted English morale and prestige, crippled France, and started a new period of English dominance in the war that would last for 14 years until France defeated England in the Siege of Orleans. Sorry, can't speak. in the siege of Orleans in 1429. So, Agincourt by Michael Drayton. There stood the wind for France when we our sails advance, nor now to prove our chance longer will tarry, but putting to the main, at Coe, the mouth of Seine, with all his martial train, landed King Harry, and taking many a fort, furnished in warlike sort, marcheth towards Agincourt in happy hour, skirmishing day by day with those that stopped his way, where the French general lay with all his power, which in his height of pride King Henry to deride, his ransom to provide, unto him sending, which he neglects awhile, as from a nation vile, yet with an angry smile, then full portending, and turning to his men, quoth our brave Henry then, though they to one be 10, be not amazed. Be not amazed. Yet have we well begun, battle so bravely won, have ever to the sun by fame been raised. And for myself, quoth he, this my full rest shall be, England ne'er mourn for me, nor more esteem me. Victor I will remain, or on the earth lie slain, never shall she sustain loss to redeem me. Poitiers and Cressy tell, when most their pride did swell, under our swords they fell, no less our skill is, than when our grandsire great, claiming the regal seat, by many a warlike feat, lopped the French lilies. The Duke of York so dread, the eager Vaward led, with the main Henry sped among his henchmen. Is that Exeter? Or Exeter? I'm guessing Exeter. Exeter had the rear, a braver man not there. O Lord, how hot they were on the false Frenchmen. They now to fight are gone, armour on armour shone, drum now to drum did groan, to hear was wonder, that with the cries they make, the very earth did shake, trumpet to trumpet spake, thunder to thunder. Well it's thine age became, O noble Erpingham, which didst the signal aim to our hid forces, when from a meadow by, like a storm suddenly, the English archery stuck the French horses. With Spanish yew so strong, arrows a cloth-yard long, that like a serpent stung, piercing the weather. None from his fellow starts, but playing manly parts, and like true English hearts, stuck close together. When down their bows they threw, and forth their bilboes drew, and on the French they flew, not one was tardy. Arms were from shoulders sent, scalps to the teeth were rent. Down the French peasants went, our men were hardy. This while our noble king, his broadsword brandishing, down the French host did ding, and to overwhelm it, and many a deep wound lent, his arms with blood besprent, and many a cruel dent bruised his helmet. Gloucester, the Duke so good, next of the royal blood, for famous England stood with his brave brother. Clarence, in steel so bright, though but a maiden knight, yet in that furious fight scarce such another. Warwick in blood did wade, Oxford the foe invade, and cruel slaughter made still as they ran up. Suffolk his axe did ply, Vermont and Willoughby bear them right doughtily, Ferrers and Fanhope. Upon St. Crispin's day, fought was this noble fray, which fame did not delay to England to carry. Oh, when shall England men with such axe fill a pen, or England breed again such a King Harry? That would be King Henry V. Interesting. Interesting that they would pick a historic battle, for it was a historic battle even back then. Probably not quite 200 years old when that was written. Interesting they'd pick a historic battle for the subject of their poem. It's not a battle I know all that much about. I have no doubt that it has been written primarily to glorify the English, the notables among the English who fought that day, but even so, it's interesting that they claim to know, at least to some degree, what each individual's contribution was, in a loose sense. I suppose it's not at all unreasonable that they'd know that, but it's interesting anyway. Again, we see quite a unique and peculiar form, which really becomes a form solely because it's repeated so much. I expect if one were a particularly diligent studier of poetry, you might even be able to identify individual poems from their form. Given that there seems to have been a practice, at least for some time, of creating your own form. Anyway, moving on to the Virginian Voyage, Michael Drayton. The Virginian Voyage. Now, I don't know precisely what voyage they're referring to here, but clearly this is a journey by sea, and Virginia of today in America was named after Queen Elizabeth I, who would have been on the throne when this poem was written. Actually, Michael Drayton, did he live into the Jacobean period? He might have done, mightn't he? Continuing to write through the reign of James I and into the reign of Charles I. Oh yes, he certainly did. Sorry, I forgot when he died. So actually this could easily have been written post Elizabeth I, but I would suggest, without having read the poem yet, that there's a good chance it's about the settlement of New England during the Elizabethan period. But we shall see. I might be wrong. So, to the Virginian Voyage by Michael Drayton. You brave heroic minds, worthy your country's name, that honour still pursue, go and subdue, whilst loitering hinds lurk here at home with shame. Britons, you stay too long, quickly aboard bestow you, and with a merry gale, swell your stretched sail with vows as strong as the winds that plough you. Your course securely steer, west and by south forth keep. Rocks lead shores nor shoals, when Aeolus scowls. You need not fear, so absolute the deep. And cheerfully at sea, success you still entice to get the pearl and gold, and ours to hold, Virginia, earth's only paradise. Where nature hath in store fowl, venison and fish, and the fruitful soil without your toil, 3 harvests more, all greater than your wish. And the ambitious vine crowns with his purple mass the cedar reaching high to kiss the sky, the cypress, pine, and useful Sassafras. To whom the golden age still nature's laws doth give, no other cares attend, but them to defend from winter's rage, that long there doth not live. When as the luscious smell of that delicious land above the seas that flows, the clear wind throws your hearts to swell, approaching the dear strand. In kenning of the shore, thanks to God first given, O you the happiest men, be frolic then, let cannons roar, frighting the wide heaven. And in regions far, such heroes bring ye forth, and those from whom we came, and plant our name under that star, not known unto our north. And as there plenty grows of laurel everywhere, Apollo's sacred tree, you it may see, a poet's brows, to crown that may sing there. Though voyages attend, industrious industrious hack lute, whose reading shall inflame, men to seek fame, and much commend to after times they wit. So to be perfectly honest, I'm not 100% sure if that was referring to colonising the New World, but I think it was. Certainly they referred to get the pearl and gold and ours to hold Virginia, Earth's only paradise. Again, that seems very likely they're talking about what would now be the state of Virginia. And where was it? They also referred to somewhere about here. Western by south, fourth keep, and they would have been sailing in a southwesterly direction to get to Virginia, I would imagine. I don't know precisely the route they would have taken to make sure that they didn't take excessive risk, but Virginia's going to be significantly, I would have thought, based on climate, that Virginia would be both to the, well, obviously it's to the west of Britain, because the east coast of America is to the west of Britain, clearly, and if it were at the same latitude as Britain, then it would be very, very cold, which it isn't, so it must be southwesterly. So all that is to say that I'm reasonably certain that this poem was about the colonisation of Virginia. Again, it has a poetic form all of its own. It's interesting that they're describing the people that are travelling there as heroes. It's almost like propaganda, isn't it? Because it's describing the land as being so plentiful and so easy to work, which I'm fairly certain it wasn't, especially. Do I remember correctly that Michael Drayton was the one that ended up in a semi-official role? Possibly not, because we didn't read that far through it. So I think that was probably one of the previous authors we were reading. poetry of. Oh, many of his works consisted of historical poetry. That's what they meant. They meant poetry whose subject is a historic event or a historic phenomena, such as the colonization of America, which would have been a continuing thing. That wasn't one event. Anyway, next we move on to Christopher Marlowe. Goodness, quite the distinctive appearance there. Christopher Marlowe, also known as Kit Marlowe, was an English playwright, poet and translator of the Elizabethan era. Again, we see translator. A lot of these poets at this point in time were translators, which is interesting. Marlowe is among the most famous of the Elizabethan playwrights, based upon the many imitations of his play Tamburlaine. Modern scholars considered him to have been the foremost dramatist in London in the years just before his mysterious early death. Some scholars also believe that he greatly influenced William Shakespeare, who was baptised in the same year as Marlowe and later succeeded him as the preeminent Elizabethan playwright. Marlowe was the first to achieve critical reputation for his use of blank verse, so that is poetry that has form but doesn't rhyme, which became the standard for the era. Yes, that was it, because most of Shakespeare's plays were written in blank iambic pentameter, as I recall. His plays are distinguished by their overreaching protagonists. Themes found within Marlowe's literary works have been noted as humanistic, with realistic emotions, which some scholars find difficult to reconcile with Marlowe's anti-intellectualism and his catering to the prurient tastes of his Elizabethan audiences for generous displays of extreme physical violence, cruelty and bloodshed. Prurient refers to indulgence of other lowly pleasures, doesn't it? Uneasy with desire, itching, especially having a lascivious anxiety or propensity, lustful, arousing or appealing to sexual desire, curious, especially inappropriately so. Yes. So no reference of violence there at all. Let's see what my physical dictionary has to say about prurient. Prurient, given to indulgence of lewd ideas, rare, having morbid desire or curiosity. Oh, okay. So not violent, but morbid. Events in Marlowe's life were sometimes as extreme as those found in his plays. Differing sensational reports of Marlowe's death in 1593 abounded after the event and are contested by scholars today owing to a lack of good documentation. There have been many conjectures as to the nature and reason for his death, including a vicious barroom fight, blasphemous libel against the church, homosexual intrigue, betrayal by another playwright, and espionage from the highest level. The Privy Council of Elizabeth I. An official coroner's account of Marlowe's death was revealed only in 1925, and did little to persuade all scholars that it told the whole story, nor did it eliminate the uncertainties present in his biography. Interesting. So he was only 29 when he died. And he was born in Canterbury. There is, of course, the Marlowe Theatre in Canterbury. Which obviously is named after him. So this poem is The Passionate Shepherd to His Love by Christopher Marlowe. Come live with me and be my love, and we will all the pleasures prove that hills and valleys, dales and fields, or woods or steepy mountains yields, and we will sit upon the rocks and see the shepherds feed their flocks by shallow rivers to whose falls melodious birds sing madrigals, and I will make thee beds of roses and 1,000 fragrant posies, a cap of flowers and a kirtle embroidered all with leaves of myrtle, a gown made of the finest wool, which from our pretty lambs we pull, fair lined slippers for the cold, with buckles of the purest gold, a belt of straw and ivy buds, with coral clasps and amber studs, and if these pleasures may thee move, come live with me and be my love. The shepherd swains shall dance and sing, for they delight each May morning. If these delights thy mind may move, then live with me and be my love. It's interesting that this is poetry of such apparent popularity at the time, assuming that this poem is a fair example of what was popular at the time. I mean, its overall meaning is absolutely obvious. I don't think there's anything any underlying themes that are obscured or concealed. It's just about trying to persuade someone to live with them, apparently with a little bit of bribery, but evoking romantic pastoral scenes. What is a kirtle? A knee-length tunic, a short jacket, a woman's gown, a woman's outer petticoat or skirt. Jonathan Richardson, Lady Anne Cavendish, daughter of Elihu Yale, collection of the Yale Center for British Art, New Haven, Connecticut, USA. The portrait depicts a woman wearing the fur-lined kirtle of a peeress's coronation robes. So is thought unlikely to be Anne, the daughter of Elihu Yale, since her husband was not a peer. Circa 1725, so this would have been about 130 years later. So from a fashion sense, it's it can't be compared. The fashions of that period would be very different, especially since, as we have learnt, a lot of Christopher Marlowe's work seem to be pandering to the masses, whereas this is clearly a woman of station. But still, I believe it's the outer fur garment that is the kirtle. So that's presumably what's being referred to here. As for the form of it, it seems to be in rhyming couplets, iambic tetrameter, not pentameter. It's interesting. Perhaps I'm just a Philistine, but I didn't think this one was actually particularly remarkable. Anyway. Let's move on, shall we? So we'll move on to the riddles. So the last riddle we looked at was presumably 136. Near to the purling streams I rest, where I am often found, oft took up like a wandering beast, and put into the pound. Sometimes I high and lofty grow, my head I proudly rear, but seldom in a coach I go, though often in a chair. If my merits rightly weighed, I've no great cause for pride, since I'm not only lightly made, but often laid aside. When mortals from their cares awhile a strict cessation keep, the tedious minutes I beguile, and watch them while they sleep. As one of old, Alcmena's son, by poisoned shirt annoyed, so when my covering is put on, I by it am destroyed. As beast by sacrifice prepared, I'm fatted for the fire, and bound and stuck, and when upreared, in flames and smoke expire. I once the oppressed relief did bring, my kind assistance gave, and from the fury of a king did Israel's leader save. And the solution to that riddle was a reed. A rush, sorry. A rush, I should say. And the reference to I'm fatted for the fire is the creation of a rushlight, which is, loosely speaking, a bit like a candle. It's a rush that has been prepared, which involves causing it to soak up a lot of fat, and then it's burnt as a cheap source of light in predating, in times before electrical light was common. And rushlights were actually extremely... they spanned a huge period. I mean, they go back at least to medieval times, probably much further. And I'm fairly certain they were still being used even up to Victorian times, possibly even Edwardian times, because a lot of people didn't have, especially among the poor, they did not have electrical lights. They needed to light the house somehow, and the cheapest way was rushlights, as opposed to candles, which had advantages but were much more expensive. Anyway, moving on. So, 137. I'm that which God, whose spacious eye can look through all eternity, never yet have seen, nor ever can, though common to the eyes of man. A king will always call me brother, and yet we seldom see each other. A ploughman meets me every day, and we never quarrel for the way. But if a peer and I should meet, perhaps we jostle in the street. Youthful beauty's blooming pride, my very being will deride, while age and wrinkles will persist, they see me where I don't exist. Well, the fact that God's eye can see through all eternity but can't see this strongly suggests that whatever the solution to this riddle is not something real, which immediately makes me think of other things such as dreams, or dreams in the sense of things that we we desire to come true, as opposed to the things we experience at night or whilst asleep. Although I suppose there could be some overlap there. Or fears, or worries. Although that doesn't fit so well with the others. The other parts of the riddle. Potential is another one. But it would seem a bit odd to say that God can't see potential. Possibilities, maybe? So what was it again? I'm that which God, whose spacious eye, can look through all eternity. Does spacious just mean occupying a large space? Or does it have another meaning? Having plenty of space, roomy, large in expanse, yes. Never yet has seen, nor ever can, though common to the eyes of man. A king will always call me brother. That seems like a big clue, but something that I'm missing. And yet seldom see each other. A ploughman meets me every day, and we never quarrel for the way. But if a peer and I should meet, perhaps we jostle in the street. Youthful beauty's blooming pride, my very being will deride. While age and wrinkles will persist, they see me where I don't exist. Youthful beauty's blooming pride, my very being will deride. Well, age and wrinkles will... I assume those two clauses are supposed to be connected, that the second one is a comment on the first. Youthful beauty's blooming pride, my very being will deride. While age and wrinkles will persist, they see me where I don't exist. That also seems like a clue. A significant clue, I mean. Youthful beauty's blooming pride, my very being will deride. Could the answer be time? I'm that which God, whose spacious eye can look for all eternity, never yet has seen nor ever can, though common to the eyes of man. Possibly, that's getting a bit theological, but I suppose if you can see all of time in one go, then you're sort of not seeing time, arguably. A king will always call me brother, and yet we seldom see each other. That doesn't really make sense. A ploughman meets me every day, and we never quarrel for the way. Maybe? But if a peer and I should meet, perhaps we jostle in the street. Unless that's just a reference to not having a lot of time, being busy, that doesn't really figure. Youthful beauty's blooming pride, my very being will deride. That makes sense. While age and wrinkles will persist, they see me where I don't exist. That doesn't make sense. Okay, it's not time. Danger? And that which God, whose spacious eye can look for all eternity, never yet has seen nor ever can, though common to the eyes of man. A king will always call me brother, and yet we seldom see each other. Unlikely. A ploughman meets me every day, and we never quarrel for the way. Again, unlikely, but if a peer and I should meet, perhaps we jostle in the street. Youthful beauty's blooming pride, my very being will deride. Doubtful, while age and wrinkles will persist, they see me where I don't exist. Wisdom? I'm that which God, whose spacious eye can look for all eternity, never yet has seen nor ever can, though common to the eyes of man. Probably not. So what would be different about the way that God sees things? Obviously, he would see all of time. I mean, God can't be killed. He's immortal. Let's see. God is classically omniscient, omnipresent, and Omnipotent. So, weakness and ignorance would possibly be two candidates. I'm that which God, whose spacious eye can look through all eternity, never yet has seen, nor ever can, though common to the eyes of man. Well, I mean, he would see weakness and he would see ignorance. A king will always call me brother, and yet we seldom see each other. Yeah, unlikely. Desire? I am that which God, whose spacious eye can look for all eternity, never yet has seen, nor ever can, though common to the eyes of man. A king will always call me brother, and yet we seldom see each other. A ploughman meets me every day, and we never quarrel for the way. But if a peer and I should meet, perhaps we jostle in the street. Youthful beauty's blooming pride, my very being will deride, while age and wrinkles will persist. They see me where I don't exist. Unlikely. I mean, what things could you see that don't exist? Potential? What else? Danger? Jealousy? Betrayal? Antipathy? Love, I suppose. Success? Greatness? And that which God, whose spacious eye can look through all eternity, never yet has seen, nor ever can, though common to the eyes of man. A king will always call me brother, and yet we seldom see each other. A ploughman meets me every day, and we never quarrel for the way. But if a peer and I should meet, perhaps we jostle in the street. Youthful beauty's blooming pride, my very being will deride, while age and wrinkles will persist, they see me where I don't exist. Greatness, maybe. So what's that? 137. If you have any guesses of your own, please leave them in chat. An equal. Ah, I was on the right lines at the very end, but I didn't get it. I'm that which God, whose spacious eye can look through all eternity, never yet has seen nor ever can, though common to the eyes of man. A king will always call me brother, and yet we seldom see each other. A ploughman meets me every day, and we never quarrel for the way. But if a peer and I should meet, perhaps we jostle in the street. Youthful beauty's blooming pride, my very being will deride. While age and wrinkles will persist, they see me where I don't exist. I suppose that's getting at the idea that youthful beauty's blooming pride should be unique, and yet if there's an equal, then it's not unique. Could be wrong. As in a very beautiful young person, for example. Could be wrong. Yeah, I was at the very end. I was thinking in terms of mutual status, such as venerable older people, and then perhaps maybe they aren't so worthy of respect after all. I didn't quite get there, unfortunately. Wonder if I should have tried a little longer. Oh well. Let's keep going. 138. Ye who in riddles take delight, attend to me, a wondrous wight. A wondrous wight? Isn't a wight a person that has suffered greatly? I know it can also mean a type of undead. Is it a type of... perhaps it's a type of spectre who has suffered. I'm looking it up in my physical dictionary. I'd rely on that more than Wiktionary here, because wight is definitely a term that has been picked up by various fantasy franchises and expanded upon in ways which would dilute its meaning here. Wight, person, being, especially luckless, wretched, etc. Creature, person, thing of. Double of wit. Yes, so it was a wretched, luckless person. The undead sense clearly came later. Attend to me, a wondrous wight. All forms I take that e'er was seen, all colours wear, red, brown, blue, green. Sometimes all loveliness appear, sometimes a monstrous figure wear. Yet in all forms I pleasure give, and though I'm dead, I seem to live. There's some association between wights and death then. The hardy sailor views in me the object of his fantasy. He who the charms of nature loves, my warm admirer surely proves. The epicure's oft pleased to see what gratifies his taste in me. What's an epicure again? A person who takes particular pleasure in fine food and drink. Oh. But to the lover I'm most dear, who brings his charming mistress near. Not always am I prized alike, this happens as the taste I strike. Sometimes my value's thought so great, I'm sold by peers and live in state. What do they mean by live in state? Looking up state in my physical dictionary. Condition in which a thing is, mode of existence as determined by circumstances, of course. Rank, dignity, as in a style befitting his state. Oh. So in that sense, it shares a sense with status then. Which makes sense, since they clearly share etymology. Pomp, as arrived in great state. Keep state. Maintain one's dignity. Be difficult of access. In state. With all due ceremony. Well, there you go. I'm sought by peers and live in state. So that's not peers as in equals, that's peers as in members of the peerage. At others it is deemed but small, and then consigned to servants' hall. The rich through me decrease their store, and wealth and I give to some who are poor. When young and new I'm greatly prized, and generally when old despised. Yet in some cases 'tis my age, the admiration doth engage. One further hint I'll give, then know, I immortality bestow. I was wondering if it could be charity or help, something like that. Assistance. Ye who in riddles take delight, attend to me, a wondrous wight. I'm not sure why any of those would be described as a wight, though. Of forms I take that e'er were seen, all colours wear, red, brown, blue, green. Sometimes all loveliness appear, sometimes a monstrous figure wear. Again, not following that, yet in all forms I pleasure give, and though I'm dead, I seem to live. Interesting. You wouldn't call any of those dead, though. The hardy sailor views in me the object of his fantasy. Unlikely. He who the charms of nature loves, my warm admirer surely proves. The epicure's oft pleased to see what gratifies his taste in me, but to the lover I'm most dear, who brings his charming mistress near. Not always am I prized alike, this happens as the taste I strike. Sometimes my value's thought so great, I'm sought by peers and live in state. At others it is deemed but small, I'm then consigned to a servants' hall. The rich through me decrease their store, and wealth I give to some who are poor. When young and new I'm greatly prized, and generally when old despised. Yet in some cases 'tis my age, the admiration both engage. One further hint I'll give then know, I immortality bestow. I was considering desire, but I don't think that quite fits. Great deeds. Doesn't quite fit. Talent. But why would talent be dead? Memories. Ye who in riddles take delight, attend to me, a wondrous wight. All forms I take that e'er were seen, all colours wear, red, brown, blue, green. Sometimes all loveliness appear, sometimes a monstrous figure wear, yet in all forms I pleasure give. Or memories don't give pleasure in all forms. That also rules out regret. And though I'm dead, I seem to live. The hardy sailor views in me the object of his fantasy. He who the charms of nature loves, my warm admirer surely proves. The epicure is oft pleased to see what gratifies his taste in me. But to the lover I most dear, who brings his charming mistress near, not always am I prized alike. This happens as the taste I strike. Sometimes my value's thought so great, I'm sought by peers and live in state. At others it is deemed but small, and then consigned to servants' hall. The rich from me decrease their store, and wealth I give to some who are poor. When young and new I'm greatly prized, and generally when old despised. Okay, I misunderstood that. It's not that it's prized by the young and despised by the old. It's that when this thing is new it's prized, and when it's old it's generally despised. In some cases 'tis my age, the admiration doth engage. One further hint I'll give, then know, I immortality bestow. So something which is much more valued when it's new than old. Ambitions? But not all ambitions are dead. Hopes aren't all dead. See, that's what makes me think it's probably something past, not future. But what in the past always brings pleasure? Cherished memories? But why would you despise old, cherished memories? That doesn't fit. So it's, ye who in riddles take delight, attend to me, a wondrous wight. All forms they take that e'er were seen, all colours wear, red, brown, blue, green. Sometimes all loveliness appear, sometimes a monstrous figure wear. Yet in all forms I pleasure give, and though I'm dead, I seem to live. The hardy sailor views in me the object of his fantasy. He who the charms of nature loves, my warm admirer surely proves. The epicure's oft pleased to see what gratifies his taste in me. But to the lover I'm most dear, who brings his charming mistress near. Not always am I prized alike, this happens as the taste I strike. Sometimes my value's thought so great, I'm sought by peers and live in state. At others it is deemed but small, I'm then consigned to servants' hall. The rich through me decrease their store, and wealth I give to some who are poor. When young and new I'm greatly prized, and generally when old despised. Yet in some cases 'tis my age, the admiration doth engage. One further hint I'll give, then know, I immortality bestow. tricky one. So I wonder what it's referring to where it says the rich through me decrease their store. Whims or fancies? Obligations? No. I may have to give up on this one. Like immortality bestow. Legends? Ye who in riddles take delight, attend to me a wondrous wight. All forms I take that e'er was seen, all colours wear, red, brown, blue, green. Sometimes all loveliness appear, sometimes a monstrous figure wear. In all forms I pleasure give, and though I'm dead, I seem to live. The hardy sailor views in me the object of his fantasy. He who the charms of nature loves, my warm admirer surely proves. The epicure's oft pleased to see what gratifies his taste in me. But to the lover I'm most dear, who brings his charming mistress near, not always am I prized alike. This happens as the taste I strike. Sometimes my value's thought so great, I'm sought by peers and live in state. At others it is deemed but small, I'm then consigned to servants' hall. The rich from me decrease their store, and wealth I give to some who are poor. When young and new I'm greatly prized, and generally when old despised. Yet in some cases 'tis my age, the admiration doth engage. One further hint I'll give, then know, I immortality bestow. I'm guessing stories, although I wouldn't be surprised if that's wrong. It doesn't fit for everything, but it fits for quite a bit of it. So what was it, 138 I think? A picture. Ye who in riddles take delight, attend to me a wondrous wight. All forms I take that e'er was seen, all colours wear, red, brown, blue, green. Sometimes all loveliness appear, sometimes a monstrous figure wear. Yet in all forms I pleasure give, and though I'm dead, I seem to live. The hardy... See, that line doesn't... It's not exactly wrong, but it's... Unless I'm missing something, it's not exactly right either. It's not like all pictures depict people who have since passed on. There would have been pictures of living people. Therefore, I suppose it just means that its pictures are made out of a dead medium. But even that isn't necessarily true. There'd be plenty of minerals involved in the production of a picture. Anyway, the hardy sailor views in me the object of his fantasy. He who The charms of nature loves, my warm admirer surely proves. The epicures are pleased to see what gratifies his taste in me. Ah, so pictures of food. That makes more sense. I was struggling to pass this one precisely, but it means he will see the thing that gratifies him within me. So a picture of food. But to the lover I most dear, who brings his charming mistress near, not always am I prized alike. This happens as the taste I strike. Sometimes my value's falsely great. I'm sought by peers and live in state. At others it is deemed but small, and then I'm consigned to servants' hall. The rich through me decrease their store, because expensive pictures, and wealth I give to some who are poor, presumably poor painters. When young and new, I'm greatly prized, and generally when old, despised. Interesting. I'm not sure. Well, it does go on to say, yet in some cases 'tis my age, the admiration doth engage. Interesting, there was a general sense that old pictures are to be despised. On further hint I'll give, then no, I immortality bestow. Okay, that makes a lot of sense in retrospect. I didn't get that. I started to think in the broadest possible terms around the right sort of ideas towards the end, but I didn't get it. Anyway, that'll have to do for this week. Thank you for coming, everyone. I hope you enjoyed the stream. I'll be streaming again on Friday and Saturday and Monday, in which I'll be doing more Metal Gear Rising Revengeance. And then I will also be streaming next Wednesday, which will be more poetry and riddles. So once again, thank you for coming, and I hope you all have a wonderful night. Good night.